Biden delivers the worst State of the Union speech ever, a partisan mess, and you could say the yeller of the union, not the speech of the union, since it was such a oddball mess. And as many people know, one of the indications of dementia is an irritability that never goes away. That people are always acting irritable. Seems to fit. Welcome. This is Dr. David D. Schein for a special episode of Saving America as we bring you my analysis of the State of the Union message, also known as SOTU, message. The expectations for this speech were pretty low to start with. All he had to do is read the teleprompter and say what the puppet masters behind his administration told him to say for 67 minutes. And he's had a week or two that he took off beforehand to practice it, make sure he read the teleprompter directly. Notice most of the time this fellow's gotten into trouble because he has answered questions or volunteered information. He definitely still has the capability to read, and I think that is one of the things that will fade last as we see this clown fade away. There were a bunch of things that happened in here. Perhaps leading off, other than my overall observation that Biden acted like he was running against Trump, maybe making a response to a State of the Union speech that former President Trump had made, since he keeps mentioning Trump over and over again in his presentation. Obviously, the puppet masters know that Biden is behind and that he needs to somehow discredit Trump, despite the multiple criminal and civil prosecutions that he and his administration and his buddies have launched against the former president. So it is kind of interesting out there. In any event, moronic opening statement referencing Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. It's one of two wars that only happened due to the weakness of Biden on the world stage. The huge loss of life is directly on his incompetent shoulders. Moronic statement one, comparing January 6th protesters to the Civil War. Come on, Joe. Moronic statement number two, claiming he cut the federal deficit. Not sure how increasing the national debt by $10 trillion could be interpreted as cutting the deficit. Joe's backers have relied on the big lie technique for so long, they have now taken it to an entirely new level. He also resorted to silly phrases that the Dems think will work. Increase taxes on businesses and the wealthy. This ignores the fact that businesses' taxes are transferred to the public. When you buy something, you're paying not only for the cost of creating the item, you're paying for the taxes that the business pays so that they can make a profit and give it to their owners or stockholders. Come on. And the wealthy are already paying virtually all income tax. Taxing the wealthy, increasing the corporate income tax accomplishes nothing. You need to get a new line, Joe. Get it together, you and your puppet masters. Moronic statement number three, COVID-19 was a massive financial disaster. Well, part of this is true. Shutting down everything solved nothing. Communist-controlled states like California destroyed their already sinking economy, as did New York. Florida and Texas recovered quickly. The feds threw away money carelessly, including paying people who were in prison. Yes. How hard is it to know that, oh, I'm mailing a check to San Quentin, you morons? The fraud in the giveaway programs was incredible. Moronic statement number four, going after Roe v. Wade in the Supreme Court. Well, 50 years ago, the United States Supreme Court should never have legislated from the bench. Right now, each state can implement its own plan for abortion. While I am opposed to abortion for routine birth control, as most Americans are, we do need reasonable rules to avoid the Texas situation that came up where a woman had to go to another state for medical treatment due to a specific situation. It is clearly murder to allow late-term abortions of survivable babies just for women's convenience. Watch the extremists pushing for no restrictions and think about it for a few seconds. We must reach a national consensus. The Dems don't want a national consensus since murdering babies is their only campaign plan. Look at it, folks. Look at the advertising that was done during the recent primary elections. I'm sorry, folks, but protecting criminals and murdering babies is about the only thing they've got to brag about. And I can't tell you why I want either one of them as my campaign slogans. Moronic statement number 5, proposed immigration reform con job bill would have fixed the border. As I've already done on another Saving America episode, this was a totally bogus bill. It would have increased costs and institutionalized the current open border. Every GOP senator, the handful that voted for this fraud, needs to be voted out of office. This is not complicated. A bad, awful, terrible bill for America. And he keeps talking about it like it's something positive, and it's not, folks. It's a con job. All Joe needs to do is shut the border. And now, this is the #1 issue with sensible Americans. 4 documented murders in 1 week by illegals should have been enough to convince even this fool's handlers. To add insult to injury, he mispronounced the name of Laken Riley, one of the 4 murder victims, people murdered by illegals in this country. Hey, Brandon, show us you really care, close the border. Instead, Biden apologizes for referring to Laken Riley's murderer as an illegal. He's illegal. Yes, he's illegal. And get it straight, Joe, you moron. Moronic statement number 6, he pushed for his Equality Act, which he claimed would protect transgender rights. Folks, I have, as an employment attorney, worked with cases involving employees going through gender assignment, reassignment surgery since the 1990s. There has never been a problem. This is a fabricated crisis. It represents a massive threat to women's sports. We have worked for equality for women for decades. I am publicly, and have been for decades, a supporter of equality for men and women. This reverses 50 years of progress. Why reverse that now, Joe? Why, Joe? Moronic statement number 7, claiming that banning books is a threat to our diversity. For years, we have prohibited children from gambling, buying cigarettes, and keeping them out of strip joints and similar entertainment places. How can we now say it is bad to keep sexually explicit material away from our youngsters? You are a fool, Joe, as is your puppet handlers. Moronic statement number 8. Joe claimed the Voting Rights Act is no longer working and more needs to be done. Well, more needs to be done, but is to protect the sacred right of citizens to vote. When you hear the moron Merrick Garland, appointed as Attorney General by Joe Biden, saying that voter ID laws are bad and he's going to go after them, you know that we have a major problem in Washington with the Biden administration. We must have secure elections by citizens, and we have to require some type of documented ID being produced. It is a sacred right, and we must protect it. And for them to claim that this somehow discriminates against Blacks and Hispanics, folks, that's insulting to Blacks and Hispanics. That's ridiculous. We all have ID, and it's no particular cost. You can go to your local DMV. If you don't drive, you can get an ID card issued by the DMV. Yes, folks, this ID claim that somehow discriminatory is totally ridiculous. Republican primaries indicate that these demographics that they're relying on are totally false. What they're really concerned about is that Black and Hispanic voters have figured out the con job and are now voting for Republicans. So they need to have illegals vote in elections, which is the only reason why you would push to have no voter ID. Moronic statement number 9, given all the cost increases across the American economy, it was ridiculous for Biden to raise the issue of shrinkflation. He claimed cookies and chips were in the same size package, but there were less of them in the package. Hey, Joe, how about being concerned about fuel prices, gasoline prices being doubled since you took office? How about controlling the out of control federal spending that has happened? Yeah, maybe we could get there some other way. I don't think you are really worried about a bag of chips. You've somehow conned people out of millions of dollars. You got 3 houses, Joe, and you've never had a legitimate job outside of government. Yeah, why don't we look into what the inflation at the Biden household involves, and then maybe we can talk about businesses charging to get their money back. And you know what? Nobody needs to buy chips and cookies. We're talking about people buying gasoline, milk, and basic products like bread. The other day, I looked at price of whole wheat bread in the store. The best price over there was $3.50. I remember when it was $1.49. Yes, that was not that long ago, folks. Okay, so what do we got here? Federal spending is ludicrous. We've had the highest mortgage rates now in 20 years. Consumer spending is an average of 18% more than since Joe took office, and with an effective reduced income of 4%. So, folks, this is an old trick of scumball politicians called deflection. Point the public to something else so that the real concerns do not have to be addressed. This is Dr. David D. Schein. Thanks for joining us for this special State of the Union analysis by yours truly. And we certainly welcome your feedback. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite platform.